Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to map and refine full fluffy brows for a client who has a longer face shape without thinning them out too much, but slightly because that's what she wanted, while also creating a lifted tail, keeping the balance just right. So full fluffy brows are gorgeous, and I know that a lot of people would want to keep what she has because they're like literally perfect, but she likes them slightly thinner, a little bit darker. They're gorgeous. So, how do we keep that more structured look without like losing, too much of the shape, without taking off too much? So we're going to be going over how to do that. Since this client has naturally full fluffy brows and she wants them trimmed down a little bit and a little bit flatter, we just kind of have to be mindful of the adjustments that we make, and we need to map them in a way that keeps her face balanced. So we don't want anything that's like too archy. We don't want anything that's like super flat. We kind of want to just follow like what her natural shape is, but just slightly thinner. And so by the end of this video, you'll know exactly, where I place my mapping lines to help refine these thicker, fluffier brows while keeping them looking natural and enhancing her face shape. Again, she has more of like a longer oval face shape, right? So we don't want them too archy. That's why she likes them a little bit flatter to not over elongate her already like longer face shape. So we just want to be careful with that. Many artists make the mistake of over thinning the full brows, which can completely change the client's overall look. And another mistake that they make is removing too much of the or adding too much on the arch, which can make them look really like, kind of like Ronald McDonald. So we don't want to do that. Keep in mind that inside Badass Brows, I teach artists how to refine full brows without losing their natural beauty, really going over the face shapes and the complementary brow shapes and all of the things that I don't share in here, plus my in-depth consultation process that has helped me get booked and busy, and also my natural brow method. So if that's something you want to incorporate into your guys' business, then check out the course below. So like we always do, we're going to start with identifying where the imbalances are in her brows and which brow is going to be her, her favorite. Her brows are pretty even for the most part. There's just like a few things here that we're going to point out. So we want to identify the imbalances so we know where to kind of add or subtract to create the illusion of harmony, the illusion of evenness and balance. So, her favorite brow was the right brow because of just like how it's arching, the fullness, things like that. So we can kind of see that the hair flow is, it's pretty perfect on both sides. So we're just kind of like, I know it's kind of a stretch in this case because I could leave them like this, and I feel like if these were my brows, I would keep them happy. This would make me happy, but it is about what the client wants at the end of the day. So you can see here that if we create like our middle line, right, which that wasn't that straight, sorry. If we create our middle line, okay, this is not working, but this one is going to be closer than this one. Her arch here has a steeper slope. This one is definitely flatter on this side. Her tail is longer on this side. Her arch goes up slightly higher because I think just the length of the brow. Her overall width of the brow is longer on this side. This brow is shorter because of where the front is. So since we are, going to be mimicking her favorite brow, we're really just going to be creating some length to extend that brow here and here on the tail, while maybe cleaning up a little bit of hairs here to kind of give her some of that arch. She doesn't like it too archy because, again, like she has a longer face. So we want to make sure that's slightly flatter. So that's some of the things that we're going to keep in mind when it comes to creating her final shape. So we're going to be going again with maybe a little bit more of a flatter brow, but keeping the softness to her arches. Whoopsies. Let's bring that down just a little bit. Okay, so now that we know where her imbalances are, now that we know where, what her favorite brow is overall, we're gonna start placing some of these lines, okay? So starting with our middle line, we're gonna just kind of be placing this, I would say, right about here. Think of like two halves, okay? We're not going to be using the bow of the lip in this case because that would make it slightly uneven. So we just kind of want to use the forehead for that. And then since the right brow is her favorite, and right by, I mean by looking at it like straight on, we're going to keep as much hair here as possible. Now keep in mind that since the left brow is further out, we don't want too much skin or gap between the skin and the hair. So just be mindful of that. And we don't want to take off too much of the front of the right brow, right? So we want to preserve as much hair as possible. So that is where the dip of her brow is. Or I'm sorry, her nostril is. And then her nose goes about right here. Perfect. So we're keeping that much hair. And then that way on the left brow, we're only like having to fill in like a few millimeters, right? And then since we are doing a little bit of a flatter brow, we kind of want to extend that arch a little bit more outward, so that way it's not so archy, because she doesn't like that. So we're going to pull this out slightly using like maybe the outer corner of her eye as our marking point, and then let's just see what that looks like. And then the slope is going to be a little bit more further out, right? So let's just kind of test that. So let's say if we go to create the shape, how is that going to end up looking when it slopes down? I think we need to bring in just a little bit more because it's going to be too straight. So maybe using that higher point of the brow there, and then here. So you can always play with the lines, you guys. The first line that you place, it doesn't always have to be like the end all be all, but I feel like that's a good slope right there. And then we want to keep, I'm going to say because she wants more lift, we kind of want, I think I would mimic this side because she wants more space between the eyelid. So therefore we want more of that lifted look. I would say we bring this up a little bit more to match the left brow actually. Okay. So this comes down much further than the front of the brow. So if I were to like follow that, that would create like a really dippy eyebrow. So we kind of want to pull this tail out a little bit more. So that's why I said shorten it. So that way we can create more of like a lifted, trendy, straighter looking brow. Now we're going to determine where the fronts of the brows are, and going straight across here. I'm preserving as much hair as possible. So I'd say they're pretty even in the front, so we're going to mark our line right in here. And then this next line is going to determine the thickness of the brow, and she wants to go slightly thinner. Actually, I'm going to bring that bottom line up a little bit higher because we want them slightly straighter. So if I go too low, we're going to have to like, kind of create the fronts to be dippy like that. So, and then we're going to go a little bit thinner than where her last bit of hair is, right? So this hair is up here. So we're going to go slightly thinner than that because we don't want that top line to be too thick. So if I were to put it higher, right, like up here, then that brow would be really thick. And we don't want to do that. So I know that a lot of the time artists will get really scared. And it's okay if you want to preserve the hair. So you can always go thicker if you're like not sure. But, if you are a little bit more confident, then you can bring that line a little bit lower. It just really just depends on what your skill level is, right? And then lastly, we want to do the horizontal line that's going to determine the highest part, or like where that arch is going to touch. So you want to, again, think of these lines like a leveler. And we want this brow to be slightly flatter, but we don't want to cut off too much here on the top on the right brow. So we want to be careful of that. I'd say right about there. Because this is just probably trimming. We're not going to like actually wax those off, okay? So we want to do slightly straighter brow. So when we go to create the body of the brow lines, we don't want too much angle, right? Because we don't want a super archy brow. So you want this to be much more of a flatter line overall. So we're gonna keep our angle slightly flatter. Same with the top of the brow. And I would trim these down rather than like removing hair because we have to be careful not to It's too thin. So go a little flatter, like right in there. Then here, a little flatter right in there. And then bringing this out this way. Too high of an angle. Too high on the left side for sure. I'm gonna actually now, seeing this, we need to bring this up a little bit higher because we want more of a flat, straighter brow. Because I had it so low, it wasn't letting me, like, it was kind of creating more of an arch, and we don't want that. So let's try this again, a little higher now. Too rounded on top. So I actually went slightly lower than where we had that horizontal line there. Shorter tail. Maybe too rounded. Elongate that a little bit. Too straight. Too rounded. So maybe something along those lines, right? So you want this tail. And I would say we would go in with like a little bit more concealer and fix these lines a little bit more. So clean this up right in here. Pull this out a little bit more. Even like sharper out this way. And then not so much curve right here. It's a little bit like more angular. And pulling that down. We don't want too much arch. So something along those lines, but also maybe lifting the front a little bit more. Like right in here, so it's like slightly flatter. Right? So she likes more of that like angular look, so you really want to pull it out like a little bit more this way. So that is how we create more of a upward, straighter, slightly arched, you know, brow, and we can always take this down a little bit more so it's flatter, and we can also take down this line on the bottom if she wanted to go a little bit flatter, right? So we wouldn't have as much slope right in here. So those are some of the things that I would do to kind of refine the shape to give her more of that thinner, more upward, straighter brow. And then if you guys want to learn more about facial structure and the most complementary brow shapes, feel free to check out the link to my course below where I go over that more in depth. Again, and also includes my consultation process that has got me booked and busy because my clients come to me due to the fact that I create more of a natural brow. So if that's something you want to master in your business, then make sure to check that out and you can begin to level up your guys' brow work literally ASAP.